let's wait for another couple of minutes.
Hoping Ted can join.
Hi, Jonathan, your voice is very soft.
It's very soft. Is it?
It's better now.
Okay. I was saying, I'm hoping Ted can join.
Hi there. I also managed.
Yes. What I can do is quickly send him a reminder, a personal email, and
Yeah, the email had the old link actually for the meeting.
also what happened, that was unintended. So the email that came out yesterday or day before yesterday, that was because of the mailman problem. So
Okay.
it was an order that was not delivered at the right time.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So this time only reminder was from Darren, and he sent it on Monday.
Yeah, that's right.
So let me see if I can send him an email. Oh, he's here. Hi, Ted. Good morning.
Hey, Karen. Good morning.
Yeah, ignore the email I just sent 30 seconds ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. It's I'm kind of in that mode of like still have 2 minutes left to work on this bug. You know.
Bugs all precedence. All right, let's quickly get started, everyone. This is fourth interim since we started doing this, and a very important message. Please note whatever you say, whatever you share is recorded, it is live, and it will go on record. So be careful. And that's it. We go back to resolving the open issues. I noticed that 2 or 3 new issues were generated over last 3-4 days, but we will follow exactly the same procedure as before. We'll go in the order of the way the issues were opened. So I will stop sharing and let's get started. Ted, are you ready to share the screen?
Sure. Let me see if we can do this a little bit less stupidly than last time. So, yeah, the challenge is which window to share. So I guess let's start off with the GitHub repo.
There are 16 issues. Sort by oldest first. Just a quick question. Are we about the state machine for NAT64? We will touch upon that document, or
Somebody needs to write that. Basically, what you're seeing right now is that the amount of time that I have is limited, and so we're getting work done during the meetings, but I'll try to make some time to actually add that before too long. I think it's fairly straightforward.
can If you
sorry.
have
So
some high-level bullet points, why don't you send it to me and I can scribe a paragraph or two about it, or and then you can clean it up.
well, I
That's
mean, I have
one
an
way.
implementation, but the implementation is really hard to read, and that's the problem. So let's see. So you wanted me to share? Let's see. Okay, so I just asked to share the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you guys seeing this?
Yeah, it's the resolution is
Not great.
yeah.
That's
It's not sharp.
Meet echo
Size
blur.
is,
Yeah, Meet Echo uses a very low resolution codec, but here I'll just make the font bigger
oh,
and
it's
actually make it a little more. Is
yeah,
that
it's
better?
getting better. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see. Curious if we can get any more surface area here. Okay.
It's almost like it's a digital Zoom.
Well, basically what I've been doing is like I can see both the conversation, like I can see the Meet Echo and I can see the window that I'm sharing. And so I was just adjusting the window and watching the Meet Echo until it filled the screen. So here we are. Life is good. Okay, so we actually had an agenda. But did we have any specific order we were going to go in?
Let's start tracking from the oldest first. So
Okay.
sort on.
All right,
Yeah,
so we talked about state machine. I think that's, I mean, well, you know, we could try and do state machine here. I don't think that's a good thing to try and do in a meeting though now, unless you guys
No.
are really desperate.
Yeah, writing a new text right now will not be very productive.
Yeah, okay, so the next item is make all contents of the RA sent by stub router explicit and with rationale. So, all right, so we already did the M&O flags, didn't we? How much work is left to do here? Esco, this was your issue. Do you have a sense?
Yeah, the intention was to have like one place, which could even be an appendix, for example, having all the contents of the array listed, like maybe in the order where it appears in the array, including things like timers, other things, so to have a complete overview and also design rationale. So why is it set like that?
Okay. So there's a danger to doing that, which is if we say something in the appendix that contradicts what we say in the document, then the implementer is going to have a problem. And we're going to have non-interoperable implementations because one person will go by the appendix and one person will go by the document. So we have to be super careful not to do that. That is sort of the general reason why we don't do that. What we could do is we could list off all of the elements and point to where in the document we say what to do with that element. Would that make sense?
But that I understand it differently. It's like a
Okay.
packet format where different bits or type fields are defined and they are part of the specification. Even if you put it in appendix, it should have no conflict with the document, isn't it? Because
Well,
this
it
is the
depends on what we
standard.
say in the appendix. So the point is, we could, in the appendix, as Esco was saying, list the rationales for setting things in various ways and so forth. The problem is, as soon as we start doing that, whatever we say in the appendix has the potential to be not the same as what we said in the main document, right? So we have to be very careful when we're documenting what these fields mean, that we don't accidentally document them two different ways. And that's what I'd like to avoid. And as a general rule, it's better to only state things once if you can, just to avoid running into that problem. So yes, of course, we can list off all of the things that might go in the RA, but what I'm saying is let's just refer to the place in the document that describes how to set that thing rather than actually explicitly describing it in the appendix. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now we have a little bit of a problem here in that I'm only sharing a window. So I guess what I could do is just add a comment here that does what we're talking about doing. So does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe just a fun check if the related pull request here is actually.
Oh, is there a pull request already?
Well, I don't know. I see something in development. It's on the right bottom here. So there is something that looks like a branch being referred or linked. I'm not sure if that solves the entire thing.
On the right-hand side, 36 make.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. And also Darren assigned it to himself to do something. So I'm not sure what it is.
And I did not.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking
so
I'd do
there's
exactly
nothing-
what Ted had mentioned, which was go through and identify all the spots in the document. Where the
Okay, so we don't actually have a change in this
But in the-
so go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure what's in that branch now.
It
while
doesn't look like, so there's 2 commits ahead and 14 commits behind. Let's see what the 2 commits are. Initial appendix, revert glossary rename. So here's the initial appendix. This is the terminology appendix. Oh, here we go, router advertisements. So wait, I see, yeah, okay, so router advertisements.
Yeah, I think, for example,
Yeah,
for the flags, we should refer to the sections, of course, that tell about the flags.
Yeah.
There are some things
this
like
is-
timers that are not mentioned at all in the document, so those
Mhm.
can be mentioned in the appendix, I think.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, so actually this text here comes across. So there was an issue that was raised recently, like 2 days ago, about stub routers that are also home routers. It looks like the person who raised the issue, it's someone from Eero. They're not here today. But the what I'm seeing is so this text here. So generally speaking, yeah, I mean this is not really accurate with respect to stub routers, because a stub router essentially is never going to set the router lifetime to a non-zero value. However, the issue that was raised the other day is, what if we're a device that is connecting to something that could be a stub network, but we're actually a home router. So in other words, the use case here is like with Thread, which is kind of our current use case for stub routers. We have we could have something like an Apple TV or something like that. It's just a device that's sitting on the network, on the local infrastructure network, has a connection to the local infrastructure network, and is doing its best to maintain some kind of state that allows devices on the infrastructure network to communicate with the stub network. But it's also possible that you might buy something like an Eero router, which actually just can connect to Thread. And so the Eero guys were asking, like, okay, so how do we make that work? And from a Thread border router perspective, the Thread border router function is the same whether it's a stub router or not. From the stub router perspective, I don't know if that use case is even in scope. And the reason I'm mentioning it here is because this text is talking about the router lifetime field, and the router lifetime field in a stub router is always going to be 0 because it's a stub router. It's not a default router. But in the Eero case, the router lifetime might in fact be non-zero because the router is not only a stub router, but also, or not only connecting to the stub network, but also connecting to an ISP.
Yeah, so I think we should have some appendix saying for the pure stub router case, it looks like this. Maybe we could get started with that. And the other case, yeah, I think we have at the moment 2 other issues open for that.
Yeah.
What to do with that? So that's,
Right.
I think, still to be determined.
Yeah. So part of the challenge with this, by the way, it looks like let's see.
I have another stupid question here. Like, if we
Yeah.
have this kind of functionality on the same router, the stub router and the one facing ISP, will stub router bit not help there? So for every stub router functionality that is towards the home network, it will have stub router bit set, and the functionality for ISP and for the main router, it will not have that bit set. Will that not help resolve the issue in terms of functionality?
Well, so this is a standard document describing how to make a stub router. And the question is, do we document that? Is that a stub router use case? Is that in scope? Yeah, obviously a home router advertising a ULA prefix for local use should not set the stub router bit because it's a home router, not a stub router. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But the question is, should we even be talking about that use case?
Yeah, it's maybe for a next document you could say that, huh? Like, this is not SNAC simple anymore, but more complex.
Yeah, or if it is SNAC simple, then maybe we need to just talk about like what to do on the infrastructure network and the stub network separately. But again, like with the Eero router, what I would personally think makes the most sense, and it's not just Eero, I'm just using Eero as an example because I happen to have one of their routers that has a thread radio in it. But in the case of a router like the Eero, I think also GLINet makes a thread router, and there are probably other people. But in this case, I think it actually makes sense. The stub network at this point is actually kind of being operated by an infrastructure router. And so the router can just like assign a prefix to the network. It doesn't have to, like, that prefix can just be the prefix that is on that network. Because this, you know, presumably your home router, if your home router goes.
Oops. Did we lose that?
Oh,
Yeah, I think we lost it.
Ironically, I'm still here, but
We hear
everything
you
went
now.
away. Yeah. Like I didn't actually disconnect. It just like for some reason sharing stopped. So I don't know what happened, but it's all an adventure. Oh, Apton has his hand raised.
yeah,
Yes,
he is in the.
Sorry, just following up on the same discussion here. I think we should just from the stub router perspective, we should just say that the route lifetime can be configurable on a specific device that wants to have act as a default route. If you are a standalone stub router, yes, of course, you could not say I'm a default route, but there is a configurability possibility that can be set. And yeah, I believe that's
well. So I think this is the problem, Apton, is that we have to be careful when we so most of us on the call. Well, let's see, most. I would say half of us on the call are people who've worked on the thread border router, and so we have this model in mind for what the thread border router is. And the IETF stub router document is part of it. It's representing a piece of that model, but not the whole model. So what you just said makes sense for the thread spec, but I don't think it makes sense for the stub router spec. What you just described is not a stub router. If we're setting the router lifetime to a non-zero value, that is not a stub router.
I guess for me, so I think, for example, the Arrow router, they do their own EULA prefix independent of the stub router, right? Like if you don't activate thread, it still advertises EULA. But
Right.
the Google router, I believe, like there's no EULA unless thread is enabled. And so I think it might be useful to have some guidance that says, to the effect of if the router is not providing EULA on the infrastructure link, then it needs to do this. But
Yeah.
does it set the
So
stub router bit in that case? I don't know.
I think it doesn't because it's not a stub router. So I mean,
Okay.
the challenge here is like the original Euro implementation basically treated the customer edge router function and the thread border router function as two separate functions and sent
Yes.
two separate RAs with the same source address, which was problematic on a lot of
Correct.
levels. And I don't know if they fixed that, but
they're trying
I think
to argue not to fix it, but yes.
yeah, well, that's I think they can argue for what they want in the thread group, but in the IETF, I don't think that's going to fly.
Sure.
Because like that's just an incorrect implementation. It's like silly to do it that way because it's like they're just using like Linux. All they have to do is just write the radvd.conf file. It's not hard to fix this.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So I like statement resolution that router can allocate its own prefix for the stub network. I think that's very, if it has no side effects, that's a very straightforward and simple way we can resolve this issue and take care of the specification.
Right. So the question is, what are we writing in this document, though? Like, should we say something about this use case in this document? Apton seems to have his hand up.
Oh. Go ahead, Apton.
It's a leftover from the last section. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I still go back to my comment of if we have to provide some guidance that says there has to be a EULA on the link but if there's no EULA, then you know what I mean? If GLINet just, for example, doesn't configure their router the same way Eero does typically, independent of thread, then they need some guidance on what they put when they put thread in there.
Right. The problem is who's we in this case, and I think what the we that you just described is the thread group, not the IETF, because that's the thread spec. Now, that's not to say that there doesn't need to be a SNAC document that talks about this. I think maybe there does, but it's not clear to me that it's this document. If it is this document, that's okay. I'm not saying it can't be this document, but if it is this document, then we need to figure out how to demarcate that thing, because a SNAC router is really a very different thing than an RFC 7084 router, which is what we're talking about here is basically an RFC 7084 router with two dependent subnets.
Okay, understood.
And we already have a spec for how that's supposed to behave, which indeed does require a ULA on both subnets.
Yep.
So, although I don't know if RFC 7084 talks about this explicitly, so that's also something we might want to investigate. Because I think ideally it would be best to solve this problem in RFC 7084 and have a reference here that talks about the fact that might happen and that a stub router in that scenario needs to know about it. So basically, the way that would look from the stub router's perspective, and this is something we definitely would want to put in this document, is when a stub router connects to a network that already has an RFC 7084 router providing service on it, that's not a stub network. And that's not a SNAC network. And the stub router needs to be able to detect that it's not a SNAC network. And so, let's imagine in the case where that network has router advertisements on it, the SNAC router is going to see a router advertisement that doesn't have the stub router bit set. And that's going to tell it, oh, I don't need to do anything on this network. This network is managed. It's not my problem.
But it's not what we specify now, eh? So we're looking for the suitable prefix, right? Not for whether there's a router.
No, remember, this is not the infrastructure link. This is the stub link.
Okay.
So
talking about
Yeah,
that.
so on the stub link, I don't know that we actually have gone into detail about this particular scenario. We talk about it in the thread spec, but I don't know if we talk about it in the SNAC document.
So what was the scenario then on the stub network?
Right. So the scenario is you've got something like, the GLINet router or the ERA router, which has both a thread interface and a Wi-Fi interface. And so that's a customer edge router.
Yep.
And that router should be advertising just basically it should be following the RFC 7084 spec with respect to what it advertises both on the infrastructure network and on the thread network, because from the perspective of that router, the infrastructure network and the thread network are both just LAN segments, right?
Yep.
So then the point is that this document needs to make sure that we don't sort of step on that configuration and do something weird to it. So.
Yeah, and this device that I think was mentioned in one of the recent issues also had this edge router functionality or CPE router that could be disabled. That's maybe another aspect to consider. So if you disable that functionality that makes it a gateway or edge router, then what remains left is basically the link to the stub network, and that it can link to Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and then still act as a stub router in that case. So it's kind of conditionally a stub router.
Right. So basically, that would be the case where the infrastructure network is managed by some other router, and then the GLINet or ERO is plugged into the infrastructure network essentially as a bridge onto the infrastructure network to provide Wi-Fi, but then also provides stub router functionality. And so, yeah, that's a different. Yeah, right. That makes sense. Oh, this is a big can of worms.
No, but I guess just to follow up on your original thought, I do agree that ideally it's 784 that talks about it, and especially since it's good for a CPE vendor to just reference a single doc and
Okay, so I think though that we have actually come to a little bit maybe of a conclusion here. Let me see if I can document that. So we've got, this is issue here. This is this issue, I think. Okay. So I'm going to just note this conversation down here.
I think you mentioned Wi-Fi here, Ted, but could that also be thread? So that was what I had in mind. Thread as a stub network, for example.
Well, so if the same device is
then it's not bridging, I guess,
but is also connected to, right? So So this is the case where from the perspective of the infrastructure network, this device is not managing the infrastructure network. However, it does have a stub network interface that is not the infrastructure network. And we expect it to behave as a stub router in that configuration.
Yeah, so it's up to the vendor maybe, but I think
Yeah,
the vendor
right. Like we
might
can't
want
specify.
to do it. The vendor might want to have it behave like that, for example, to get it into thread certification.
Yeah.
For example, in that
Well,
scenario.
yeah. That's a separate topic that we can discuss in the thread group, but
Yep.
yeah. Yep. So we definitely don't need to discuss that here. So great. I'm going to just add this comment, and then we can go back. Now, as far as the appendix goes, let me just, so we have this pull request.
Yeah, it's not showing up in the list of pull requests, but
well, I think it's just a branch. It's not actually a pull
just
request. So
okay.
yeah. So this, yeah. All right. So that's the top of the tree. Do we have a name for this branch? Oh yeah. So it's probably,
That's the name.
yeah. It'd be nice if there were a way to copy that. Thank you so much. No. Gotta be a way to copy the branch name.
From the URL.
I mean, yeah, well, no, except the URL even has it. Well, okay, so maybe this is it here. Yeah. All right, let me see. Oh, huh. Sorry, I'm fiddling around in the background here. I think I'm going to have to switch to an editor view in order for us to actually edit this. So I'm checking out the branch right now. Here we go. Oops. Sorry, this is taking so long. Okay, here we go. All right, so now I will check out the branch. Oh, it's 36 dash or something like that, right? Yes, here we go. Okay, great. So now we'll go into yet another window. Okay. All right, I am now going to stop sharing this window and start sharing a different window. So Karen, if you could let me in. There we go. Yeah, that's showing up. Okay, so this would be an appendix. Here it is. Okay, so a stub router sends periodic as well as solicited router advertisements. Oh, okay, so this is a little bit, there's actually another issue here. Okay, so this is router advertisements on the stub network. So we actually, there's could be two appendices here. One is router advertisements on the stub network and one is router advertisements on infrastructure.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why.
definitely needs to be separate.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me just start off with, oops. Oh, if this is in the after material, I think, yeah, if it's in back, I don't think we need this.
Yeah, those by the way, I did also another PR to fix the build, and that was moving. Basically, I moved the references to before the appendix sections because that's needed. Otherwise, you can't build the document with XML to RFC.
Oh,
so
so the appendixes need to be earlier.
Yeah, the references need to go first.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the appendixes.
Oh wait, the references need to go first, and then the appendix. Okay, so that's the way it is here.
Yeah, that's here, but in a recent.
Oh yeah, that's right. We added
mix up, so I made a PR to fix that again.
Okay, cool.
So
Sorry about that.
Sitting there.
I think that was me. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So right now, the expected behavior is that a stub router that's connected to an infrastructure link is pretty much always going to always going to send an RA on the infrastructure link, even if there were an RFC 7084 router provisioning the stub network, right? Because the stub router has a route to that network. So one question, which is not actually probably for this section, but that just occurred to me is, in this scenario, do we want stub routers to do that, or do we want them to just shut up? Basically, if the stub router detects that there's an RFC 7084 router on the thread network, or sorry, on the stub network, does it just shut down, stop acting as a stub router?
Okay, how could it detect that?
Well, so the way it would detect that, like if we're doing RAs, then it would detect that by seeing an RA on the stub network that doesn't have the stub router bit set.
Okay, but
if we're doing, like in the thread scenario, we actually have like specific priorities for managed versus unmanaged. And so, so in the managed case, we would be advertising services and routes with a priority of high. And I think possibly with a priority of medium, but anyway, we'd have to figure that out on the thread side. But the point is that we do actually need a way to signal that the network is managed somehow. How that's done on thread is out of scope here, but in sort of our Wi-Fi case, it would be we would just see an RA that does not have the stub router flag set, and I think that would tell us this is a managed network. We should not be advertising routes to it.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow. So you mean that somebody who's not a stub router is sending RAs and advertising the route to that stub network?
Yeah.
So that basically the second stub router can think, oh, I don't need to advertise it anymore because there is already one, which is managed.
Well, no. So stub routers are cooperative, right? So if there's multiple stub routers, they're all going to set the stub router flag, and they're going to cooperate as to what's advertised on thread. Or sorry, on the sorry, got to stop doing that. What's advertised on the stub network? So they would basically behave the same way that they're behaving on infrastructure, right? If there's no infrastructure provided prefix on the stub network, they're going to send a router advertisement. And that router advertisement is going to include a prefix to use on the stub network. And if two stub routers are present, then they're going to cooperate so that only one of them actually advertises a prefix on the stub network. However, if there's an infrastructure router that's advertising a prefix without the stub router bit set on the stub network, then in that case, I think the stub router doesn't send any RAs or equivalent on the stub network, and doesn't send any RAs or equivalent on the infrastructure network.
Okay, I have some things to think about. So you're talking about RAs on the stub network and like.
Well, RAs are, thread uses something different, but basically the functionality is the same.
Yeah, but the thread case, it doesn't have the stub router bit on the stub network side or equivalent.
Right.
There's not.
Yeah, but in the thread case, we have another way of signaling that, and if we're not satisfied with that, we can address that in the thread group. We don't have to deal with that here. So in the case that the stub router,
but in general, you could say that the stub router we're talking about the infrastructure side here in this section. So if there's a stub router, it still needs to advertise the route to its stub network. For example, if it's the only one, so it needs to send
RAO. No, so the only time that we would be turning off RAs on infrastructure is if we've detected that there is that the network is managed, that the stub network is managed. Did that sound true to you, or are you like?
Okay,
puzzled?
well, maybe that's something to think about because I don't think we say anything about that yet in the document currently.
No, we don't.
And I'm not sure if that's the correct behavior. If it's managed, then stop helping to route towards the stub network. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Well, so we can. I think let's just like thinking of like the Wi-Fi stub network use case. It seems clear to me. So as an example of, let's say, a Wi-Fi, something that looks like a Wi-Fi stub network. Suppose you have a phone that can do tethering, and it's able to tether to it's able to provide service to an existing Wi-Fi network. And you might be using it as an internet backup when your internet connection is down. In that scenario, the tethering router is going to detect that there's an RFC 7084 router provisioning what it's seeing as a stub network, which is the home network. And in that case, I would expect it would not advertise a default route because there's already service. So, so that's the case where, and in that case, it's not even using the stub router bit; it's just using the router lifetime. Because I think if the edge router doesn't have a default route, its router lifetime should be 0. Not clear that, I don't know if RFC 7084 specifies that, but if it doesn't, we should fix it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can actually, let me think about that. Can you classify, let's say, the home network, so whether it's Ethernet or Wi-Fi, which is normally the infrastructure link? You were saying that the phone sees that as the stub network.
Right. So basically, I'm kind of making up a use case here because we don't act. The only use case that we currently have for SNAC is the thread network. But we've talked about having a SNAC router provision a Wi-Fi network. And in fact, if you look at the appendix that that Darren added, it's all about that, right? Like we don't actually do router advertisements on the stub network if it's a thread network, but if it were a Wi-Fi network, we would. So we do actually care about this case. And so then the question is, what is that stub network? Like, what's the context for this? You know, one context for this is that you're just using your Wi-Fi, you're using your phone as a tethering router, and so it's got a stub network below it.
Right, but it doesn't fit the definition of stub network, I think, because that Wi-Fi network can, for example, be linked to a thread network via a stub router. So it's like you have a stub linking to another stub, and I don't think that fits the definition of stub network that we use, like non-through, how it's called, a network without a through routing. Yeah, like an endpoint network, where you can't get away from.
So again, I'm trying to describe use cases for stub networks that I think make sense. So bear with me here. One use case is that we have like my phone, and I've set it up for tethering. So it's acting as essentially as a CE router, right? And in that case, I mean, we can talk about the Wi-Fi network that it's advertising as a stub network, but we don't really have to because it's the only thing that's managing that stub network. So it's not really a very good example. However, another example that I think is a completely valid example is that we have the same tethering scenario, except that instead of the phone being the Wi-Fi access point, the phone is connecting to a Wi-Fi access point. And so in that case, it would make sense for the phone to just detect whether the network is provisioned, right? And if it's provisioned, then the phone shouldn't be provisioning it, right? It's like, it doesn't matter whether tethering is turned on, the phone should not be doing stuff to that network because it already has service. But if it doesn't have service, then like if it doesn't have, if there isn't anybody advertising a default route on that link, we've got our phone configured for tethering, we've got our phone configured to connect to that link as a Wi-Fi client, not as a Wi-Fi access point. It makes sense for the phone to advertise a router advertisement in this case because it's the only router that has internet service. So it's going to advertise, it's going to send an RA with a router lifetime that's not 0. And that's the exact scenario that Darren's describing in the second appendix. Did that make...
But I was just thinking about, you mentioned that phone could be like a stub router then, but it is not connecting to an infrastructure network in the home. It's like directly going over cellular, right? So the ISP.
Okay, so
it looks different.
Right. So that phone is definitely not advertising anything on the northbound interface. So you're right. That's not an ideal example. Yeah.
So
sorry, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think we should have something then, an example that meets the requirements that we have, like the providing connectivity between AIL and Stub Network, basically in 2 directions.
Right.
That would be more
I mean,
suitable example, I think.
yeah, I mean, in a sense, you can say that the AIL in this case is just the provider, the cellular provider's network, and because the AIL already has service on it, we don't. I mean, basically, the functionality is very similar to Stub Network in this case.
Yeah.
It's just that you know, obviously, we don't need to advertise a prefix on the AIL in this case, assuming it's providing IPv6.
Yeah, but
And
okay. Otherwise, if it's IPv4 only, then I don't think the phone can
certainly, yeah,
do anything with that provider network. So yeah, I don't think
yeah.
that
I mean, this is
will
so. Again, we're just coming up with I was just trying to come up with an example use case here that would sort of explain the rationale for when we would turn things on and off, but we maybe just be rat holing here.
Yeah, maybe for the appendix we could think of like a typical case. So I think we can't maybe cover all possible RAs in the appendix, but maybe just one sort of a typical case, like would be easy to describe.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm just like, this is. Let's table this for now, because I think we're actually, like, the problem is we're both saying things but we're not writing them down, and so I think like we're not going to be able to get clarity on this. We really need to write down what we're talking about. So I actually added a note to the issue tracker for the particular issue that we were talking about. And that sort of documents the issue. And then I think that can be the jumping off point for a discussion. But I think we actually need to write some text. Like, one of us needs to write some text that describes what we think we should say. And then we can argue about that text, rather than us just sort of speaking the text and then trying to remember exactly what was spoken and argue about it.
Okay, yeah, I had something else in mind. So no text saying if this then that, or if this then that, but just look, this is an example array in a very specific situation, and it has these fields, and yeah, people can use that as a mental reference. Okay, this is how it's supposed to look in that specific case, and there can be many exceptions as well. But yeah, I'm not sure if we need those. Should be in the main text, I think, like the rules for doing things, and not trying to explain all possible cases in one appendix section at least. No, that seems to be useful to me.
Okay, so
I haven't read the document lately, but I'm using the term active SNAC router for the first time.
so I didn't understand anything you said. Your audio was breaking up really badly.
Okay. We just wrote active SNAC router. Is this something term we are using for the first time?
It is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another
and-
issue, basically, to translate from stub router to SNAC router.
Yeah.
So I think we agreed on that, to do that.
Yeah, we agreed to use the term SNAC router
Yeah, that's a.
Brisbane.
I meant active part.
Yeah,
The question
right.
was
So
more.
that's what I understood you to mean as well. So So the reason I said active SNAC router is because we just had this conversation where there was some question as to whether SNAC routers should always be active. And so, so if that's the case, we want to make sure that we don't say that all SNAC routers, active or inactive, send multicast router advertisements, etc.
Yeah, that description needs to go somewhere in the front of the front part of the document, maybe
Yeah.
in another term element.
Yeah, so I actually added that to the issue about ICMPv6 RA behavior when the device is both a router and a stub router.
There was also an open issue on that, by the way. So because current document says that when it stops advertising the PIO, it stops sending RAs altogether. And I basically was questioning that, like, no, it needs to send RIOs as well in most cases. So
yeah, okay. So
related.
I'm trying to find that. Requirement to stop. Oh, okay, here we go. That's the state suitable one.
Yep. I think so. Or the other one, I think another one.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember which. I don't have the list in front. I think there was another one.
Yeah. Yeah, so
oh yeah, number 60, that was the one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is number, sorry, I'm looking at it, but you guys aren't seeing it, but this, yeah, number 60. So so I'm just adding a note here in issue 60 that says this probably relates to the active SNAC router question. So these router advertisements are filled with the following. Okay, so the router lifetime field. That makes sense?
Yeah, I
Are you
think
guys seeing this?
Was the typical case I think we wanted to express here. So yeah, of course we have discussion about if you combine it with the CE router, but let's not do that here. So it's good for
right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for MNO, I think we should make a reference to the section that basically says how to configure these.
I think this version of the document doesn't contain that.
Oh yeah, that's an older text indeed, yeah.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, I think for the pull request, you can also put a TBD string pointing to the section. So that means that you can always clean it up later.
Yep.
It would be hard to make the reference otherwise.
Okay, so
This is a pretty old document, version 02, so you don't want to
Yeah.
make too many changes so that the pull
Right.
becomes
So yeah. So what I just did is I just rebased it to main. So it now has all of the new stuff. So so here we have I think. Oh, so we haven't actually fixed that yet.
Correct. Yeah. So to do.
Okay. Yeah, but we can assume that fix, I think. So that means we can get rid of this. And then cur hop limit. I have no idea what to set that to. Does anybody know what to set that to? I mean, is this the right text here? Because that
First look where that is in the RA, cur hop limit. Oh, that's the 8-bit unsigned integer on top. A value of 0 means unspecified by this router. So that was the one I was aiming for, so 0. So everything that you can avoid specifying, you should avoid specifying.
Right.
That was the idea.
So the default
router.
Yeah.
So 0 is good to say. I'm not providing it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the RC 4861 says the default value to be placed in the cur hop limit field in the router advertisement messages sent by the router. The value must be set to the current diameter of the internet. Value 0 means unspecified. So yeah. Reachable time. Value to be placed in the reachable time field. Value 0 means unspecified. So yeah, this should be the same as the
yeah, so both 0 also for the next one.
Well, I don't think value 0 means undefined. Yeah, see, I mean, this gets into like a little bit of a challenging problem here, which is that I at least am not an expert on this stuff. I don't know if anybody here is. So my intuition is that the reachable time that we set here should be the same as the lifetime of the routes that we advertise and the same as the lifetime of the PIO that we advertise, if any, right? But I don't even know how this is used. Let's see if it's mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, it's used by the neighbor unreachability detection algorithm.
Really?
It's for reachable time.
Yeah, it's part of DUD, but I don't know what host implementations do with that if they see different values on the link.
Do you think they will handle 0 correctly? Because that's kind of the easy way out.
But yeah, I guess I don't know if they see 0, they ignore it, or if they see 0, they set it to whatever host default is. I would be concerned if it's the latter and you know the infrastructure router is trying to specify something else.
If there is a non-stop router setting some value there, then according to the specs, they should heed that value and ignore the stop router ones that say 0. But yeah, we don't know if the implementations actually do it that way. And if there are only stub routers on the link that all use 0, then yeah, it's maybe a question what will happen then.
Right. So then let's see. Yeah, so RFC 4861 doesn't say anything about how it's used. It just says, yeah. Yeah, it says nothing. Let's see what it says for unreachability. Yeah, so basically, we don't know what to set this to. I think that we should actually probably have a lifetime that we say is the stub router lifetime and use that. So I'm going to just say stub router lifetime here. Actually, I guess we could make it like all official. The interfaces.
Stub router lifetime or SNAC router lifetime? Are those
Thank
things
you.
going to change?
Good point. Okay, so add retrans timer. The value to be placed in the retrans timer field. I don't even know what this refers to. Wow. Yeah. So this is interesting. Like these are, I've never actually looked at this before, and I wonder if anybody knows what these mean.
These are all magic numbers.
Well, it's not that they're magic numbers. It's that I cannot find an RFC that says what these values are used for.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if
like
people are setting them to magic numbers.
Well, so I mean, I can just.
But it's the same RFC, right? Because it describes the neighbor discovery protocol, and that's where they're used for. It's for example, pointing to section 7.2, 7.3. Maybe.
Wait,
it's
who is? What's pointing to section 7.2?
well, if you look in RFC 4861.
Yeah.
And then there are these basically this list of things to set, like reachable time, retrans timer, and that has pointers to sections, basically saying, well, what it's used for. 7.2 and 7.3 are pointed to, and also subsections of 7.3, for example, has a whole bunch of text about neighbor discovery, basically. So I think if you read that, it should be at least get some idea about what these values are doing.
But it doesn't mention them.
No, it maybe doesn't mention the timer values themselves, but it mentions probably the actions that should be timed according to these timers.
So I guess really, I am looking at section 627 of RFC 4861, and at least for reachable time and retrans time, it does say that a value of 0 should not be viewed as inconsistency.
Sure.
And what does that mean, inconsistency?
Well, so that section is talking about routers should check the consistency of the MNO flags, the Kerr-Hop limit value, retrans time, reachable time. But for at least for reachable and retrans time, there's a and Kerr-Hop limit, there's a except for the unspecified value of 0.
Yeah.
So
I think 0 is good in a way. Yeah. So that was what I expected. So always send 0, but think it might be an issue if there's no one on the link sending arrays with any value except stub routers that's sending 0. So that
then
could be solved. No.
But then it says the host uses its own value, whatever it wants. It's implementation defined at that point.
Yeah, okay, but that's why I say you don't know what it will be then, because there could be 20 hosts with each one using a different value. So
Yes.
do the protocol still work?
Well, there isn't anything in the protocol specification that explicitly refers to these values. So I think the answer is these values don't mean anything and aren't used. I mean, that's the obvious answer. Of course, that doesn't mean that that's true. It's entirely possible that
I don't believe
some
that.
implementation.
I don't believe that.
Well,
I
let's
haven't
see.
read
So
I haven't read the text, but I don't think there are just unused values.
well,
I've looked
So-
some time
No, I
ago.
think it's because, well, there's the name of the field, which maps to, they also use the term reachable space time, which is that field. And then they say, I'm looking at section 634 now, it says, if the received reachable time value is non-zero, the host should set the base reachable time variable to the received value. And then the base reachable time variable is used to determine when to send NUD messages.
Yeah, it also says that the new reachable time value is computed there, and that all these things are then used in the rest of the
router
document.
advertisement consistency. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's very confusing that they're using all these different terms for the effectively the
Yeah.
same thing.
I guess add reachable time is the default value or something like that, except that it doesn't say what it is. So router advertisement field may contain a value denoting.
Yeah, default is 0 for that.
Okay, so that's useless. The received reachable time is non-zero. The host should set its base reachable time variable to the received value. If the new value differs from the previous value, the host should recompute a new random reachable time value. Reachable time. Okay, I'm still not seeing anywhere where it says what we do with this.
Yes, I guess I would search for a base reachable time.
Yeah, in any case, what I think is that if we do have a normal router on that link, at least, that would be advertising some value, then the SNAC router can safely advertise all zeros for these fields, and it doesn't modify whatever the site has configured. If the SNAC router is sending out PIOs, basically, then yeah, it could be a good reason to also use something in these values. If we know what it's used for, at least, then. But that could maybe take some more time to investigate that.
Yeah. So
seems to be a logical conclusion. So like if some values are needed for the hosts to operate correctly, then the SNAC router can send these if it's sending the PIOs. So then it's kind of the self-assigned master of that link. So yeah, then it can do that.
I mean, it's talking about reachable time as being related to when a neighbor is considered reachable.
Yeah, so it configures the neighbor discovery protocol.
Yeah, so I was looking at, there's a RRC 7048, neighbor unreachability detection is too impatient. Does not mention reachable time at all. Yeah. As far as I can tell, this is not.
It does mention 2 times reachable time here.
Does it?
Yeah, the word without space is mentioned 2 times. But yeah.
Okay, so all right, so after 3 retransmissions, the implementation would mark the instance unreachable. So I'm trying an alternate neighbor. Yeah. It's still, as far as I can tell, not actually specifying what reachable time is used for. This example is not normative. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, I think we are not qualified to say what to put in these fields. I think that we should say nothing about these fields and let the implementer figure it out. Or if we think that this is a serious problem, we should propose to 6-man that they fix their document so that it says what these fields do. Because right now, like I could not tell you what to put in these fields.
Yeah, why not keep them in here and then have a TBD there? Because I think that's for sure something we want to say in draft, like for the implementation, how should that be set? Seems quite important because we mandate sending RAs, so with or without PIO. So we
So I'm claiming that it's totally unimportant and that nobody uses it. I may be wrong about that, but
then
that's
0
that's
would
what I'm
be
getting
fine.
at.
Then 0 would be fine, right? So I mean,
well,
everybody should ignore 0 values, and if they're not used anyway, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But you could mark it 0 with the TBD to verify that, because that's maybe something for later review of the document.
Right.
Because what we need to get at is some common understanding of how would this work and how would these packets look like. And this could be wrong, but it should be the current understanding at least. That's something we can review then, or getting others to review that.
Okay, so
I think TBD would be fine for me.
All right. Well, so I'm actually composing email to 6-man right now.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to propose the same thing. Just ask 6-man guys that what should we put here?
All right.
Shouldn't you first read all the documents then before doing?
Well, the point, no, we shouldn't, because I've already Google searched for this and not found anything. So, like trying to read all of the documents might take several years, whereas there's probably somebody who actually knows what this is supposed to be and could say.
Okay, I was thinking more
Should
about
be able to
reading only those 2 documents, and that would maybe take 1 or 2 hours and not years.
Well, the point is somebody on 6-man probably actually knows how they're used and has done an implementation. And I think that
Yeah, that's anyway good to get input from an implementer on that, because it could be different than what the spec says.
Yeah. Okay, so I've just sent the message. Okay. Well, that was an exciting rat hole. Okay, so first link layer address option. Yeah. I don't know why we're specifying this. See, this this feels like it's not useful. It feels like we're just adding text that's going to confuse people. Like, we don't know how to set the reachable time. We don't know how to set the retransmit time. This advice about load balancing. What is a replicated interface?
That's copied from 4861. I don't think we should necessarily copy, but what we need to say is that, for example, yeah, if for a stub router or SNAC router that option should be there or not, I would say typically it's there. So for this typical example, you have to say it's just there and what it contains, period. That's kind of easy to say. I don't think stub routers do anything with load balancing and replicated interfaces, so that could be just removed. And maybe like something like an MTU option is mentioned. Well, maybe that's not even sent. And then in that case, it can be excluded. So we have to consider this use case like I'm an implementer. I don't understand all these complex IETF docs. I just want to get a checklist. Okay, what do I need to include? What do I need to see in Wireshark? And when is it good?
Right.
Do I need an MPU option or not? So that's basically the question. And we should be the ones helping with that.
Right.
And maybe we don't know at the moment all these values, but yeah, I think we should at the end have some idea about that.
Right.
Yeah, so I think what I see with the issue with the current text is that it looks like just a copy from the RFC. the current text
Yeah.
is kind of copied from the RFC, and that's not very useful. I think you just do that. So you need to be very concrete. So what would this typical RA look like from the SNAC router?
Okay, so this is I think this does kind of the sort of thing that we want to do, right? Like we're saying there needs to be a PIO option, maybe, and here's how you figure out what to send and when to send it. Go to this section. So
Yeah, I think I lost the updates of the screen. Meanwhile,
oh, is this not showing up?
Yeah, I sometimes lose those. It stops working.
Oh, look at that. Sorry, I didn't realize that was gone. If it goes away again, please tell me because I might not see. I didn't have the Meet Echo window open.
Okay, I think I see now that it just got an update.
Yeah. Okay, so when there's no suitable, okay, so in the on-link flag, the entries,
I think we had a constant for the lifetime symbolic constant that was set to 30 minutes.
so this is actually not quite right though, because let's see. Let's keep these guys together. Okay, so that's the options in the PIO. Sorry, that's the PIO option. This doesn't talk about the RIO. Not sure that this is laid out correctly, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so we also want okay, so how are we doing on time? Pretty good, actually. Okay, so the route information option, where is that
The
defined?
statement does not sound right to me.
Huh?
The statement does not sound correctly. Like an active router always provides RIO to provide a router from the infrastructure
A
network.
route, not router.
We have another 20 minutes to go, and if you're exhausted, but I think it's good if we can finish this section.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. So this provides a route from infrastructure. The following settings apply. I'm going to just go and find, shoot.
Yeah, it's 4191 for the RL.
Yeah, right. So 4191. So type code checksum current hop limit. We don't know. All right. So wait. Oh, sorry. Route information option. Here we go. So somebody going to yell at me?
No, this seems good.
We don't have a route lifetime. Wow, max suitable reachable time. That's interesting. Anyway, so let's just add another one. I'm just making that up. Okay, so oops. Okay. I just forgot what it was. So it's Stub Network reachable time. So this is getting into prescriptive text, which maybe shouldn't be in this appendix, but we actually need a route information option for any prefix that's advertised on the Stub network. All right, so I actually desperately need a bio break right now, and I think that we just, well, actually, no, there's still a little more to do. Is it okay if I just take a bio break and then come right back? Sorry.
Of course.
All right, hang on a sec. Let me just disable the microphone.
So I don't know if everyone is breaking now, but just want to check because we still have some open PRs. Maybe we can agree on who wants to review those or wants to take a look at it.
Let's discuss it when Ted comes back. I think we will spend like last 5 minutes to see how to progress with PRs.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, just to not look at them. I just mean assign people to just check it and merge them.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Good. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
So I am
Yes, Ted's back.
Yeah. Okay. So here, this is on infrastructure, right? Yeah.
Sorry, one quick thing before we move on to the next one. I was just looking at something related to the earlier part. I saw Ted added the RIO lifetime, right? And mentioning like 30 minutes, right? So I just was browsing the code and I saw there are certain cases where we may be deprecating older prefixes that were previously like the thread use case or in general some other use case that were advertised on the thread side, and they are no longer. So I see at least in the code we have this mechanism of this deprecation that like adjusts the route time accordingly. Like it basically goes down to 0. So yeah, it may be this or less.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's see. And yeah, and that's just a lifetime. It's not preferred, or so we can't sort of specify that it's deprecated. But I think that's fine. Okay. So there's router lifetime. Router may. Yeah, we're not doing that. And we're definitely not doing that. This is something that's specified in RFC, I guess 4861, but we don't really know. There isn't a specific normative text that says how to handle this, and so it doesn't feel safe to assume that it will be handled correctly. And I don't think it's at all likely that the stub router will ever send an RA with this larger than the link MTU. So I think we should just not say this at all. Or we could say, does that make sense?
Yeah. I just wondered about router lifetime. Didn't we have that field already somewhere at the top?
It's right here. Oh, huh.
Higher up.
Yeah, we do.
It's there, yeah, the first one on the list.
Okay, so I guess the question is, which text do we prefer?
Yeah, I don't think we have to do normative requirements in the appendix.
You're right.
It will be changed. So maybe without the must.
Okay, best of both worlds. Okay, so that's that section, I think. Oh.
Yeah, just
Okay.
a side question here, because we have now different ways to mention the flags, and I created one issue for to have a consistent naming for the flags in the array and in the all the options as well. So what I recently used was just the name of the flag, so with a letter like yeah, what are these letters? The L, for example, and A, and then have that in sort of quotes, and then also say flag bit behind that to make it clear that it's a bit and it's a flag and which one it is. And between brackets you can add the longer name as well. So if you want to say what the flag is, like on link prefix, for example. So I just wondered in general what style do we want to apply, because I would like to make it kind of consistent, that you can have the same name, so that it's easier to also search on a particular flag and find all the instances where it's used.
Yeah, that makes sense. So wait, this is a...
So what I used was L flag bit, and then between brackets on link prefix. But that's just one possible style. So this is a slightly different style. So is there any preference to which one you want to have?
I don't strongly care. I just copied what you were saying, so but we can.
It's slightly different. So I was looking for something where you can actually search on yeah, quote A, quote space flag space bit. So that exact text. Yeah, like this. So if you do it everywhere like this, you can search on all the instances in the document.
Okay.
And that's what I do at least a lot when, for example, writing test cases or checking something. Need to be searching all the time in the document, so it's very handy to have the same name then. But if that's good, then we can use that. But there are also other shorter varieties possible. So you can leave out flag, for example. That's also possible. But
yeah,
this is what I use now.
I don't have a strong feeling about that, so I've made these consistent for now.
Yeah, I like it this way.
Okay.
I have a clarification question where we mentioned that, for example, MTU option will not be sent because it's a stub network. If your home router receives it, is it supposed to ignore it or drop it? Should we talk about the behavior?
So I don't know. Given that we're saying that we don't send it, I don't think we need to talk about the behavior.
Okay, it was more from the security perspective, right? If somebody is trying to send an undefined packet to your network, what are you supposed to do?
An undefined packet?
Like this is MTU option, your home router will not expect this packet, but once you get this this particular field set, what are you supposed to do? Ignore it or drop that packet?
You
Those are
meaning the
the
home
two
router?
options. Yeah, because the array is sent from the...
We're not specifying home router behavior in this document, so we can't say what the answer to that question is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, that how that is handled is something that's really in the bailiwick of RFC 4193. So, or 4861. Sorry. So it's not really any of our business to say how it's handled. We just say what we need to send, and then it's up to the implementation to do whatever it's going to do. I mean, in cases where we're making a decision based on what we receive in an array, then of course we need to say what we're doing. But otherwise, I think it's just out of scope.
Okay. I think this is also a good time to stop.
Yes.
Are we guys, first, from the logistics perspective, are we okay with another meeting in 2 weeks?
Let me see what's happening in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today.
While you look at it, we need volunteers or collaborators to review all the PRs and
Yeah.
issues. Who wants what ownership?
So I'm okay with 2 weeks from now.
Jonathan, Esco, how about you guys?
That's great.
Okay, so we will schedule. And Ted, can you quickly share the issues now so that we can see who will pick up a review and kind of close it, merge it?
Actually, why don't I just let you do that? Or unless you maybe you don't have it. So okay, I'll do it.
And okay, yeah.
The pull requests was the first ask here, so that we have some now.
Oh crap! Oh. Wow.
No share. Let me see if should I try to share? Let me pull up. Okay. Uh, Ted, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Yeah, it helps to turn the microphone. Sorry about that. So we were just. I think state machine for NAT64 is probably me.
Mhm.
And then, do you have some intention of? I mean, is there a way to assign these to people, or?
Yes, would be useful to assign it. You click assign yourself here on the right, and then
Let's see. So
works.
what's going on? Ooh. Sorry, I'm not seeing where it says that. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so there's that one.
Yeah. Do we also want to look at the pull requests actually that are now open?
Well,
Because
so
those also need
we're
to be
at
viewed.
6 minutes. So I don't know. I guess we can try.
Yeah, I added these because there are mandatory sections for an internet draft.
So for INS section here, should we give a reference to stub array document?
Stub RA document.
Oh, the flag document. You mean?
The
The
stub
well,
array.
the RA flags document has an INS considerations section which covers that, so we don't need to talk about that here.
Okay.
So I think this is okay. We might need to add more, but this is a good start. That second item there is more of a privacy consideration than a security consideration, but
Oh, isn't that included here, or?
no, that's actually a separate section.
Ah,
But
okay.
we can tweak that later. The privacy considerations are not required; they're just suggested.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right.
One thing about this first paragraph is that we're basically making a statement about what operators of networks that are not covered by this document should do. So it's not clear that that this is really even our issue. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm a little. I guess I'm a little skeptical of this text. Because this is placing a requirement on the operator of an infrastructure network, not the operator of a stub network or the implementer of a stub network.
But what we define as a stub router as a device, right? And it can be taken to some company network and plugged in there. So I think that's the case we want to cover.
Right, but the scenario you're describing here is a scenario where the operator of the network does not want that to happen. And so
yeah, but it could still happen, and because the stub router is by default configured to do its thing, yeah.
But no, but my point is that's not a security issue that exists because of the stub router. That's a security issue that exists already. We haven't created that issue. Like you could connect anything to this network if it doesn't have RA guard and start advertising a router advertisement.
Yeah.
And
but I think the point was that there are no other IETF devices that will by default start sending RAs. I think that was one of the discussion points in the mailing list a long time ago.
But that's not actually true. RFC 7084 routers send RAs.
So, sorry, which one? 7084?
7084.
Ah, okay, the CPE routers.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I just don't think this is a new issue that we need to talk about here. You know, we've talked about this particular issue in the appendix when we model what networks a stub router might be connected to, but we are not creating a security issue by advertising RAs. So therefore, we shouldn't be talking about it here. That's not to say that there aren't security issues, but this isn't one of them. So maybe this needs work.
Yeah, at least we need a section, and maybe you can just leave it kind of blank, like saying there are no identified issues.
Yeah,
at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that if we do that, the IESG review will be brutal, but that's all right.
Yeah, well, if we don't have anything else, then yeah, it's better to have a placeholder at least.
Yeah, something that they can look at and say, no, that's not right.
Right.
Okay, so that's that one. Restore requirement that the LDIT must be 1. Okay, so we are at 11:59. Should we stop at this point? I actually think I may need to go to a meeting now.
Yeah, and
The intention
if we
to
can,
have somebody. Yeah.
Sorry?
if we can do offline self-assignments just to make quicker progress for next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you guys, and thank you for sticking around for 2 hours.
Yep.
See you in two.
Thanks for,
We will send out invitations.
yeah, thanks to the chairs for hosting us.
Bye bye. See you in 2
Bye.
weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.